if my car hadn't broken down that afternoon. None of this would have happened. Sometimes I still think about how one simple mechanical problem turned into the most stressful 8 months of my life. Last fall, I was driving through rural Missouri on my way to visit my parents for Thanksgiving. It was a trip I'd made plenty of times before, and nothing about that afternoon felt unusual. The weather was clear, traffic was light. Everything was going exactly as planned. Then my check engine light came on. At first, I ignored it. Cars do weird things sometimes. But a few minutes later, the steering wheel started vibrating, and the engine began making a loud knocking sound. Before I could even reach the next exit, there was a sharp pop from under the hood. The car lost power almost instantly. I barely managed to coast onto the shoulder before it completely died. I tried restarting it over and over. Nothing. No signal on my phone, no houses nearby. Just an empty 2-lane highway surrounded by open fields. About 20 minutes later, an old white tow truck pulled up behind me. The driver looked like your average small-town mechanic. Greasy coveralls, baseball cap, gray beard, friendly smile. He climbed out and asked, "You all right, buddy?" Honestly, I was relieved to see him. I explained what had happened. He looked under the hood for less than a minute before shaking his head. "Looks like your alternator gave out." I don't know much about cars, so I took his word for it. He told me there was a small repair shop less than 10 miles away and offered to tow me there. It sounded completely reasonable, so I agreed. Looking back, that was my biggest mistake. The repair shop felt off the second we pulled in. It was old, run down. There weren't any customer cars outside, just one garage bay and an office with broken blinds covering the windows. The place was so quiet that I couldn't even hear another person inside. Something about it made me uneasy, but I kept telling myself I was just overthinking it. The mechanic said it'd take about an hour to replace the part. While I waited, he asked for my driver's license, insurance card, and credit card so he could process the paperwork. I handed everything over without thinking twice. He disappeared into the office for several minutes, longer than it should have taken. When he finally came back, he smiled, handed me my cards, and said my car was ready. The bill was way more than I expected, but I just wanted to get back on the road, so I paid and left. I figured that was the end of it. I couldn't have been more wrong. About 3 weeks later, I got a notification from my bank asking if I'd just opened a new credit card account. I hadn't. Then another alert came in. Someone had applied for a personal loan using my name. Within 2 days, there were applications for 2 more credit cards, a cell phone account, and even an apartment lease in another state. My identity had been stolen. At first, I assumed my information had leaked online, but the detective assigned to my case noticed something strange. Every victim he'd interviewed had one thing in common. They'd all broken down on isolated highways, and every single one had been to the exact same repair shop. The mechanic hadn't just been fixing cars. He'd been photographing driver's licenses, insurance cards, and credit cards from stranded travelers before sending them on their way. Months later, police finally raided the shop after another victim reported suspicious activity. Inside, they found boxes filled with stolen IDs, credit card numbers, fake documents, laptops, and stacks of paperwork belonging to dozens of people from different states. The mechanic and 2 accomplices were arrested before they could disappear. It took nearly 8 months to repair my credit. I had to cancel bank accounts, replace every card I owned, freeze my credit, and spend countless hours proving I wasn't the one opening those accounts. Even today, whenever my phone buzzes with a banking notification, my heart skips a beat. And whenever my car makes a strange noise on a road trip, I don't wait until it breaks down anymore. I'd rather pay for a tow truck from a company I know than trust the first stranger who stops to help. Because the scariest part wasn't being stranded on an empty highway. It wasn't the broken down car. It wasn't even the money I lost. It was realizing the person who seemed the most eager to help me had been planning to steal my life the entire time. Last summer, I was driving from Dallas back to Nashville after helping my cousin move into his new apartment. I figured driving overnight would save me from rush hour traffic, and honestly, I just wanted to get home as fast as possible. Looking back, that was probably the worst decision I made all year. By the time I crossed into eastern Oklahoma, it was close to midnight. The highway was almost completely empty. Every few minutes, I'd pass a semi-truck, but other than that, it was just miles of dark road with nothing but woods on both sides. No gas stations, no restaurants, no towns, just darkness. I had a true crime podcast playing when I noticed a black Chevy Tahoe in my rearview mirror. At first, I didn't think much of it. Cars follow each other on highways all the time. But after nearly 20 minutes, it was still there. Same lane, same distance. Every time I changed lanes, it changed lanes too. I remember laughing to myself and saying, "Come on, dude, either pass me or back off." Instead, red and blue lights suddenly flashed inside the Tahoe's windshield. My stomach instantly dropped. I checked my speed. I wasn't speeding. My headlights were on. My seatbelt was on. Everything seemed normal. But something about that SUV just didn't feel right. There wasn't another car around, and there wasn't a single exit in sight. Then I remembered something my dad had always told me. If an unmarked vehicle ever tries pulling you over and you don't feel safe, turn on your hazards and call 911. So that's exactly what I did. The dispatcher answered almost immediately. I explained what was happening and described the SUV. She was quiet for a couple of seconds. Then she asked, "Sir, are you sure those are police lights?" I think so." Another pause. Then she said something that made my heart start pounding. "We don't have any officers conducting traffic stops in your area tonight." I looked back into my mirror. The Tahoe suddenly accelerated until it was practically sitting on my bumper. Its siren chirped twice, like whoever was driving was getting impatient. The dispatcher calmly told me to keep driving toward the nearest populated area. The problem? It was still almost 15 miles away. My hands were sweating so badly I could barely keep a grip on the steering wheel. I kept checking the GPS every few seconds, hoping the distance would magically shrink. It didn't. Then things got worse. The Tahoe pulled alongside me. The driver's window rolled down, and a man wearing what looked like a dark tactical uniform flashed what appeared to be a badge. He pointed aggressively toward the shoulder. I slowly shook my head. No. The smile immediately disappeared from his face. He slammed his hand against the door and sped ahead of me before suddenly slowing down, trying to trap me behind him. I quickly eased off the gas and stayed behind, refusing to pull over. That's when the passenger window rolled down. Another man leaned halfway out. At first, I thought he was holding a flashlight. Then the moonlight caught it. It wasn't a flashlight. It was a handgun. He pointed it toward my driver's side window and motioned again for me to stop. The dispatcher could hear my breathing getting heavier. "Units are on the way," she said. "Whatever you do, don't stop." I pressed the gas pedal a little harder. The engine screamed as my car picked up speed. Every mile felt like 10. Then, finally, I saw lights in the distance. A truck stop. Almost at the exact same moment, the Tahoe suddenly backed off. For a second, I thought they'd given up. Then the SUV swerved across the grassy median and disappeared onto the opposite side of the highway, just as two real state police cruisers came racing toward me with their lights and sirens flashing. When I finally stopped, I could barely hold my phone because my hands were shaking so badly. A state trooper listened carefully as I explained everything. When I finished describing the black Tahoe, his expression changed. He looked at his partner before turning back to me. "You're lucky you trusted your instincts." He told me I wasn't the first person to report that SUV that night. The others weren't as fortunate. The men were never identified. No arrests were ever made. To this day, investigators believe they were impersonating law enforcement to target people driving alone late at night. And every time I drive after dark now, I find myself checking the rearview mirror far more than the road ahead. Because sometimes, the most dangerous people on the highway are the ones pretending to protect you.